Welcome, everyone, to the Buttercup Podcast. Today is our first podcast using video, and I am so excited to have my guest today, Miss Zibby Owens. She is the CEO, author, influencer, podcast host, and media personality. She is the creator and host of award-winning podcast, Moms Don't Have Time to Read Books. I love your podcast, in which she conducts warm, inquisitive conversations with authors as wide-ranging as Alicia Keys and Lena Dunham to Delia Owens and Jennifer Weiner. Before the pandemic, Zibby ran a literary salon, hosted her own book fairs, and was a frequent bookstore event moderator. During the quarantine, Zibby hosted a daily Instagram live author talk show and launched an online magazine with an original author-written essays called We Found Time. She also started Zibby's virtual book club. Zibby has recommended books in the Washington Post, Good Morning America, and Real Simple, and has appeared on Good Morning America, Good Day LA, Good Day DC, Good Day Dallas, and NY1. She has written for Marie Claire, Redbook, and New York Times Online, and many other publications. Zibby currently has a 2-book deal for children's books with Penguin Random House. Congratulations, that's awesome. A graduate of Yale University and Harvard Business School, Zibby currently lives in New York area, in the New York area with her husband and her 4 children. Thank you for taking the time to join me today, Zibby.
Thanks for having me.
Well, my first question is, how did you come up with the idea to create Moms Don't Have Time to Read Books?
It was such a fluke. Like, if I had planned to do this, I would never have been able to. I was actually trying to publish a book of essays about parenting because I had been writing a lot of parenting essays for HuffPost and other online publications. And my husband came into my office one night and said, you know, you should really try to sell all these essays as a book. And I said, oh, moms don't have time to read books. And then I said, oh, well, that'll be the title of my book. So I kind of floated that idea past some people in the publishing industry, none of whom thought that publishers would find that funny. Although I disagree. I think they might have. But anyway, I had the title in my head, and another friend of mine who's an author said, you know, what you should really do to kind of build up your platform and all the rest is start a podcast. And I was like, what's a podcast? And I had never listened to a podcast. I didn't know anything about it. So I kind of thought about it for a little bit. I Googled how to start a podcast, and I was like, oh, wait, I could use that title as a podcast title. And if I did that, what would the podcast be about? So I'm always ripping out, articles from newspapers, magazines, and sending them to friends or forwarding links. And I was like, well, what if I just read articles that I love or book excerpts that I love to save moms like me time, because I have 4 kids of my own. Then I found out that was illegal. So I was like, all right, well, maybe I'll just read some of my own essays, and then I'll just try to interview authors. I knew 2 or 3 authors. And I was like, well, I'll start with them and let me see how it goes. And I didn't tell anyone I was doing it. I kind of recorded the first one in my bedroom while the kids were all running around. I Googled easiest podcast app to record on your phone. And I'm still using that same service now. And I just tried it. And I sat down. I remember sitting down with my first guest, who's an old friend of mine named Lee Carpenter, and interviewing her about her book. And I was like, wait, I love this. This is amazing. I get to sit. I get to talk to friends. I learn more about them. I learn about books. And that's how it started.
That is awesome. And I love the title so much. And I'm a mom and you're a mom, and you're right. It's, we all have 24 hours in a day, and how we choose to spend them is so important. And one of the things that I wanted to ask you is the idea about self-care. Self-care isn't selfish. What do you think about that? And how does that tie into Moms Don't Have Time to Read?
Is self-care selfish? No, absolutely not. And it's really important. That said, I am really bad at taking my own advice on this, as I feel like most moms I know are. We all know logically it probably would help, but I know I'm looking totally terrible today because I actually managed to work out for the first time in forever. And I was like, I'm like, I have to do this. I have to. My knees are hurting. So anyway, yes, I think self-care is super important. Whenever I do it, I feel better. And for me, I think reading is a form of self-care. So if I sit and read, even honestly for like 5-10 minutes in the middle of a busy day with the kids, or a day when I'm like pulling my hair out or whatever, I feel better. And I feel like it's easier to get that type of self-care than a full-on workout or going to a yoga class or taking a bath or all these things that, I also don't have time to do. So for me, when I can't get on the phone with a girlfriend, or I can't do some of the other typical self-care things, I always turn to books, and they're always there.
Yes, I love books and I love reading, and I'm in a one book club, actually two book clubs now, and it's so important to take time as a parent to just recharge your batteries. And if that is reading a book or going for a jog or doing something that brings you happiness, you just have to do it. It's like putting on the mask on an airplane, because if we're not feeling good, it's really hard to bring it to the family and have good positive energy. So
What do you do for self-care?
read, same as you. I have audiobooks that I listen to.
Mm-hmm.
So if I can't read with my eyes when I'm
Yep.
taking a shower, I have a book going. I'm always in the middle of a book. And so that's one of the things that I do. I call my parents every day. That's another thing I do to take care of myself and just get grounded. And probably those are the two main things. How about you?
Good. Yeah, no, I just was curious. I always like hearing other people's advice. I've never listened to an audiobook in the shower. Good tip.
Well, and I used to listen to my audiobooks driving, but now I'm never in the car anymore because of the quarantine. So I try to do it when I'm alone because nobody else wants to hear what I'm listening to. So I usually do it like in the shower. It seems
My
like that's
husband got me these like Beats AirPods, wireless headphones. So now,
yeah,
like when I'm folding the laundry, I listen to audiobooks because that like takes time, but they don't fall out.
yeah.
Unloading the dishwasher, which I hate, all those like tasks. It makes those tasks go by faster.
It's so true. It does. Yes. So what have you learned about parenting as a result of something you read?
That's a
Maybe it
good
was a
question.
parenting book, or maybe it was fiction and you thought, oh my gosh.
I guess I've learned that I am not alone. Anything I've gone through, other moms have gone through, other dads, other parents. No challenge is so unique that there isn't a solution or somebody to commiserate with. So I feel like the more parenting books I read, the more it just hits home for me. One of my favorite parenting books is How to Stop Losing Your, well, I can't curse, but How to Stop Losing Your Blank with Your Kids by Carla Nomberg. And, she speaks to how we have to, take a deep breath and manage ourselves, and it's all about like not responding to the kids' tantrums and all of their stuff. And we can't control that, but we can control us. So, I try to keep her book and even like her bright yellow book cover in my head when I'm having a particularly challenging moment, that like she's a whole counselor who specializes in this. So it's not just me having a bad day. It happens to other people.
Yeah. So is there any, so that was parenting. What about child development? Have you gotten any insights into your children or what they're going through or different developmental stages through books?
I'm trying to think of a good example. I don't cover too many books like that on my podcast. Let's see. Something about child development from a book. I'm blanking on an answer right now. Um, I did do a podcast with Dr. Michael Reichert, who wrote a whole book about how to raise boys and the unique needs of boys. And I think that it wasn't so much developmental stage, but that the way that we treat boys and the messaging that we give them is so key in how they develop, and that you can't, not that I would have done this necessarily anyway, but the whole culture of like boys need to be tough and you need to work through it, how that's so counterproductive for boys. So things can be intuitive, but it helps to read them in books.
Yes, definitely. do you have a favorite episode of your podcast so far? You've done
My
a lot of them so far.
I've like lost count. It's like over 400 at this point, maybe. And then with all my Instagram live videos, it's like well into the 500s, maybe 600s. One of my favorites recently was with Alicia Keys, because I just adore her and am such a fan, and getting to interview her was so cool because she was just like talking to a friend. And she was nice enough to say hi to my two daughters. So that was really cool. And they thought I was like the
Aw,
coolest, that I could make that happen. So that was one of my favorites.
that's awesome. Uh, one of the things that you did is you recorded the disappointment you experienced when you didn't get a Webby Award. And Webby is a prestigious award that we have for new media. And what I loved about that was it showed vulnerability. And Dr. Brene Brown talks about the power in being vulnerable. And I just thought, what a great model for showing our kids that, you know, you're not always going to win. There has to, you know, be a winner and a loser, and it's okay not to win. And do you want to talk a little bit about what that was like?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I was so honored to even be nominated. I'm honored to be nominated, as if this is like an Oscar or something. But I couldn't believe, out of like the zillions of podcasts, they had even picked mine after I'd only been out of the gate for like less than a year or something. So that was like great. But the thing is, they had a People's Choice component of the Webbies, so you could see, relative to the other four people in your category, like what percent of the vote you had at all times for 2 weeks. So this drove me insane because I had to like get the percentage up and I could see it. So I was like, what can I do? What can I do? It was different if like I knew it was being voted on there, but I felt this like illusion of control, and I knew I wouldn't win. I knew it. I was nominated against like a Black Lives Matter podcast from the New York Times, and there was just no way. Like they won, and I mean the New York Times does anything amazingly well. So I knew I wouldn't win, but I was determined to get as high a percent as I could. So I tried everything I could think of. And I was just like, sometimes I get really focused on things. And that's what I became super focused on at that point. And I involved like everybody I knew. And, you know, I didn't win, and I knew I wouldn't. And I wasn't even that disappointed. But still, it would have been nice. But yeah, I had so many people to thank after this big effort. And, you know, I also wanted to show the kids, like, it's okay. You know, I won't win, but I was in the race, and that was really cool. And, you know, it doesn't always work out, but hey, it is what it is.
Yeah, it is what it is. And uh, it's not like it just happens once in a lifetime. Every year, there'll be more chances in the future. And
Yeah.
I'm sure you'll get it. Your day will come. It will. So in addition to being a prolific reader, you're an author. How has reading informed your writing?
um, Reading has informed my writing by showing me some of the things I like, some of the things I don't like. Um, I've become really interested in structure and what books do differently from each other. I think because I read so many books now, and even books I can't read cover to cover, I analyze and I like tear them apart and go through them, and you know, like how do they divide the sections, and like how do they structure it, and anyway, so I find structure to be really important. And what makes that book different. So I get like little tips from every book I read, things that they did creatively, or something with language. Does the language fit the topic? Is this like a super literary work, or is this more conversational? Does it fit what they're trying to talk about? Who are they talking to? What am I learning from this book? So I don't know. I get so much out of every single book has something to teach.
Yes, it does. And I have undergrads and graduate students that I work with. And I always tell my students, read as much as you can. If you want to become a better writer, you got to be a good reader. And you
Yeah.
just want to just eat it up and have as many things and diverse things to read to give you a really good foundation for your writing. And even if it's a technical manuscript or study somebody did, you still learn about structure, like you're talking about. All different kinds of writing have their own conventions and styles, and the more you read, it really does help our writing too. With the coronavirus pandemic having halted group leisure activities for children and families, many of us are looking to explore some new pastimes. More than ever, people are listening to podcasts, reading blogs, and subscribing to YouTube channels. Are there new media things that you've recently discovered or rediscovered for yourself or your family?
My kids are all about unboxing toy videos on YouTube. We
Yeah.
are like the LOL unboxing phenomenon has taken over the house. LOL wrappers in every corner. So yes.
Same here.
Same there? Yeah. How
Yes.
How old are your kids?
I have an 8-year-old daughter, and the unboxing is a thing.
Yeah, I have a 7-year-old daughter and a 5.5-year-old son, and anything they open is an unboxing opportunity that we now have to film ourselves. And so they'll like talk into the camera like and subscribe. Thanks for watching. And I'm like, no one is watching you. But yeah, so we've gotten really into YouTube. We've also done a bunch of like online workouts, and my older daughter's 13, and we bond by working out even just a couple minutes together, sometimes a couple burpees or whatever. This woman Chloe Ting did like a challenge that we both did together, so I hadn't been doing online videos for a while, and so I got back into that. So I think those are my new media. And audiobooks, like you said, I really wasn't listening to audiobooks before, and now that's something I've incorporated into my routine, and it's been really nice.
That's awesome. My daughter, when this all started, the global pandemic started, we found out about Cosmic Kids Yoga. Cosmic Kids Yoga.
Mm-hmm.
And oh, that is so fun. She dresses up in different costumes and has like different backgrounds and a theme to each of the yoga classes.
I'm writing this down. I'm writing it down. Okay, thank you.
Cosmic Kids Yoga.
Done. We also did, we've been doing these dance classes too. Wait, now I'm blanking on what it's called. On Thursday nights at 5, there are these live classes. Oh no, I'm forgetting the name. Anyway, these hip hop kid classes that we do. Anyway, if I think of it, I'll mention it.
Our local library, it's an award-winning library. They have the most amazing virtual events for kids and families. And if you're listening and watching, check out your own local libraries, and also museums have really gotten on board too with online classes and activities and events. One of the museums that I really like, they were having a adult beading class. You could get the beads yourself and order them, or you could go and wear a mask and pick up the kit there. And then they had the class online for people at home. So everyone would tunes in, and then they make the jewelry. So there's so many neat new things, and maybe things that are being rediscovered that have always been there, but it's like now we're home and quarantine, and it's like so important to have a flow for the day and have fun things to look forward to, because the days kind of start to blur together. So the author of Angela's Ashes, Mr. Frank McCourt, wrote about all that time off, ATTO, in his book, Teacher Man. He showed how teachers have ATTO in the summer and other vacation. Now that many people have a new concept of time, given the global pandemic and quarantine, do you have any suggestions of books we can read during ATTO? Book suggestions, recommendations?
Oh,
I know you have lots of recommendations. And
I do. I have a lot of recommendations. I don't even know where to pick, how to pick. I'm reading now, Michelle Harper wrote a book called Beauty in, oh my gosh, I should have just had a few. If you hold on, I'll grab a couple.
Sure, go for it.
Sorry, you might have to. Well, I just finished reading The Lions of Fifth Avenue by Fiona Davis, which becomes sort of a mystery, but it's about like a book theft at the New York Public Library. So that was a very light, interesting read with two timelines. What else? Michelle Harper's book that I'm blanking on the name of, but it's she's an ER physician, and it's a memoir about her and her growing up and how she how being a doctor has sort of informed what she does. I loved a memoir by Maya Lang called What We Carry, about how she dealt with her mother having Alzheimer's and her marriage and her child. That was also really good. I love memoirs. Stephanie Danler's Stray was really great, about coming back to LA and having to deal with her aging parents, and her love interest and sort of finding herself. Those are a few good ones.
I love the one that you recommended by Bess Kalb.
Oh, yes.
I laughed so hard.
Nobody
and
will
cried.
tell you this but me. That was one of my favorites. Yeah, that was great because I could really use a laugh sometimes. So yes, it's yeah, that was really good.
Do you want to tell people what that one's about?
Sure. Bess Kalb wrote a memoir, but it was told as if her grandmother, who had recently passed away, was telling it essentially, and it's about her grandmother's history and her relationship with her grandmother, and it was a moving, very funny story, and just really great.
Yeah, I loved just it was innovative how she did that. I think, did she write an obituary? Well, no, she spoke at her grandmother's celebration of life. Yes. And then this was an idea she had to be able to share that relationship with other people. Yep. There was one line in the book that I thought, oh, it made me laugh so hard. I called my mom to tell her. The grandma, Bobby, told her, they were talking about what to cook for dinner. And that's kind of like my mom and I are always talking about food. What are you cooking for dinner tonight? What'd you have for dinner for last night? Oh, I just saw this new recipe. She's always got a cooking show going on. And in that book, Grandma Bobby says, nobody gets excited to come home to salmon. I'm from the Pacific Northwest and we love salmon up there, but I was like, oh my gosh, that's so true. It's like, you eat salmon because you think it's healthy and it tastes good, but it's like, I can't remember the last time I got excited to have some salmon, but I just thought, oh, that is so funny. And there's so many of those in that book that I just think are so funny. One of the things that I just saw recently, I look at Goodreads. I put my books in there and I read what other people have said about books. And I came across this acronym DNF and I was like, what is DNF? What is DNF? And I was like, oh my gosh, that is so funny about the do not finish. If someone is so bored with a book that they do not even bother to finish it, that they just stop. And I have used it in my own life with different things where it's like DNF, did not finish. But I totally got off track there. What quote or motto best defines your outlook on parenting?
I guess don't miss the plot. That you can get caught up in all the day-to-day chaos and drama, but the main point is just to love your kids so much, and we only have them with us for a short time, or perhaps now indefinitely, and that we should appreciate the time and all the little things that make us laugh, and try not to take the refusals to go to bed or take a bath or all that annoying stuff too much to heart, and just like just don't miss the plot. Don't miss the plot of being a parent.
Oh, I love that. Do not miss the plot. What are some tips you found for balancing work and life?
I don't know. You have some for me? I don't know if I do a good job, but what I try to do a lot is have my kids be as much a part of what I'm doing as possible. So if I have a podcast coming up, I want to tell them all about the book and show them the book and tell them why the author is really exciting, so that when I go into my office and close the door, they understand what I'm doing as opposed to just closing the door. the way I schedule my time is like, somebody was like, you should really have an assistant and help you do all the scheduling and stuff. And I was like, no, because I'm always like, well, I could schedule this now, but then I want to leave 20 minutes because like my little guy might be free then and I'd want to spend the time with him, or that's the time of day that my older son like wanders away from Fortnite and might want to talk to me, so I can't schedule anything then. So it's like this like delicate dance of scheduling to make sure I'm out enough and in enough that I can sort of meet everyone's needs. And also, I'm divorced and remarried, so like this weekend, for instance, I don't have my kids, so I'll try to get ahead if I can on a lot of work this weekend so that when they come back, I'm not like working that whole first day or things like that. So, but I don't know. I mean, every day is different and every day I try harder and every day I feel like I can improve. And I learned from the day before. It's like, I play a lot of tennis and I feel like the reason I like that sport is because as soon as I hit a stroke the wrong way, I can figure out what I did wrong, and then the next right away I can try it again. And that's sort of how I approach this whole balancing thing. Like I can always just try it again. I always have another chance. I can turn it around. So
That
I
is
don't know.
awesome. Yes. I think that's such a good analogy. It's like tennis. Like if you notice that, oh, I just did something that I didn't like the way that worked out, or I didn't like the way the ball went, how can I do it differently?
Yeah.
And every time is a new opportunity. And yeah.
This is why I don't like golf, because I feel like when you play golf, you cannot turn it around. Like you have a bad hole and the whole round is ruined. So this is why I like tennis.
Uh-huh. Yes, definitely. And that's kind of a great takeaway too. It's like having things like tennis or something that gives you perspective. A lot of times it's like being able to step back and see what's happening and be able to have that time to reflect and see what's going on. And sometimes when you're parenting, you don't notice every moment. It leads into the next moment, and it's like they grow, and unless we like mark it on the door, you don't notice day to day. But then somebody that hasn't seen them in 3 months comes and they say, oh my gosh, he's grown so tall, or he's gotten so advanced in this area or this part of development. And it's like, oh my gosh, you're right. You don't always notice the subtle changes day to day. And yeah. So is there any advice you could, a lot of my listeners are my students, and sometimes they know exactly what they want to do with their career. Sometimes they don't. Sometimes they're changing as they go through school or having different experiences. Do you have any advice on developing a career path? Did you always know you wanted to do this with your career? And
no, I mean, I always wanted to be a writer, which I am really not. I mean, I wanted to just like be in a cabin, like writing novels or I don't know what, but no. I remember I went to business school, so I had a marketing background as well. And I remember sitting in this, career development seminar or whatever, and listing all of my skills and like the things that I was good at. And I was like, there is no job. Everyone else is like, all right, great, I got it. I'll be like a real estate analyst or something. And I was like, yeah, there's no, like I had it all in PowerPoint, but then I had no conclusion. Like I couldn't figure out what the answer was. And turned out like I was supposed to be a literary podcaster. That wasn't even invented back then. So
yeah.
No, my career has been a windy road that never seemed to make sense until kind of now. And I feel like just riding the different waves is what you have to do. And I also think that for being a writer, like nothing is better than all these different careers that you have before you sit down to write or while you're writing. All of it brings sort of a level of depth and everything to your writing. So I don't know, not to be fatalistic and say everything happens for a reason, but all those experiences along the way, that's what makes the books better and the essays better, and you're enriching your life. So I don't know. I would say, and I tried to publish a book when I was 25. I'm glad it didn't get published because it was probably terrible, but my perspective on life now is so different. I've also realized, having talked to so many authors, that if you're trying to write a novel, like, basically do your best on your first two and then just put them away because, like, the first two almost never sell. But you have to do them, and you have to write them as if you're sure they're going to be bestsellers. And then you have to, like, come to terms with putting them away. And that's part of the process. Is like, you can't just write a novel. It has to be like, you have to practice writing a novel, and it takes forever. But I don't know. That's just a few pieces of advice.
Yeah. Well, I mean, what you've done is really demonstrated this entrepreneurial spirit where don't make a job, or don't take a job, make a job. So it wasn't there before, you created it, and you kind of set the trajectory of your own career by taking what you're interested in and using your training and education and your skills to create this really neat, innovative career path for yourself.
Thank
Well,
you.
I love it, what you've done. And I think Nora Ephron said, everything is copy. And what you're saying is so true, that even the bad things that happen to us is part of who we are and part of our story. And don't be ashamed of it or hide it. That's like the good stuff. That's like the page turner where it's like, oh my gosh, is that really what happened? And so the good, the bad, and the ugly is all part of the copy. And being able to use those experiences in our writing, but also to grow from them is just
Totally true.
wonderful.
Yeah. And I would
Yeah.
also say, like, in terms of people worrying about getting older, the older you get, the richer the content you have to work with. So I feel like whatever you can write in your 20s or 30s is only going to get better in your 40s and 50s. So it's like the one thing that gets better with age.
Yes, like fine wine.
Yes, like
Better.
fine wine.
Yeah, definitely. That's so true. I didn't even think of it that way, but you're right. A lot of the authors that I love to read, it's like they're writing later in their life, where they've probably accumulated a lot of really rich copy and stories and ideas. And
Well, it's like, even when you think about, storytellers in history, right? If you have like an image of, a wise person in the community, telling a story, it's not usually like the 22-year-old. Like, there's something about wisdom of age and storytelling that's very linked. So I feel like people who are starting out shouldn't feel pressure to do their best work early. In fact, I've spoken to a lot of authors who have had big success in their 20s and now have been, sort of, it's a struggle when they're in their 40s to meet that level of excitement. So it's not to say don't start out trying. It's just keep don't quit your day job, maybe.
Well, you're a tennis player, and you interviewed Andre Agassi for your podcast. What was that like?
That was another one of my favorites. I can even show you. I have in my phone, which I just realized this yesterday, which is why I'm showing this to you. But I still have, oh, you can't really see it. See where it says Andre Agassi right there?
Yep.
Anyway,
Uh-huh.
I still saved it because it was like the most amazing thing. That was April 9th, 2018. It's like him and my grandmother in my voicemails here. It was amazing. It was one of my very first podcasts. I couldn't believe I was talking to him. His book Open is one of my favorite books of all time. If you've read it, I don't know. It's a great memoir. And it was amazing to be talking to him on the phone. And I was like drenched in sweat. I was so nervous. I didn't know what I was doing. But he was so nice, and it was just so great. It's such a thrill to read a book and then get to talk to the person about the book. I don't know. This just does not get old to me.
Yes, I know. This wasn't part of the notes that all the questions I wanted to ask you. I'm just so excited to be able to talk to you. I wrote down all the things I wanted to ask you, but then I keep thinking of more things that I want to talk to you about. And one of them was I just now was thinking, you have read and interviewed so many people, and I'm curious, when you read people's writing and then you interview them, do they talk the way they write?
Well, it varies a
Especially
lot.
memoirs. I'm thinking more like
I was
memoirs.
going to say, yeah. You can tell right away who had a ghostwriter. Let me just say that. I was just interviewing someone and I read their book and I was like, this doesn't sound like them. And then I like went to their Instagram account and, and it was like, it was, anyway, I don't want to, anyway, it was a huge difference. So I was like, you need to have a ghostwriter who at least approximates how you speak. People who wrote memoirs, some really speak that way. Like Dani Shapiro, I feel like when I talk to her, she has that same measured quality, and it's in her Instagram, it's in her books, it's in her voice. So some people yes, and some people no, but only usually because they didn't write maybe all of the book themselves.
A lot of the writing that I do a lot of the reading that I do is not as much for fun, but for work. And when I'm reading a study that someone did and it's in a scientific peer-reviewed journal, it's technical and they have to follow a certain format. But every once in a while, I'll read it and I'll think, oh my gosh, I've met them at a conference. And that really is how they talk. Mm-hmm. I had this one professor and I just would just like sit there and just watch him. I just was surprised because he'd have these big, beautiful, flowery words, long words that I'd write down and want to go back to, the office and get the dictionary out because I know what the heck he just said, but it sounded really cool the way he worded it. And that's the way he writes. He writes the way he talks. It's just so interesting and long sentences and big words. And then I've had other professors, like a totally different kind of speaker. He would have very short clipped sentences, but like to the point and very concise and nothing wasted, no extra articles or things that shouldn't be there. And that's the way he writes. He writes just the way he talks when you talk to him. And I just was wondering if with fiction and with memoirs and literature, if it's similar with authors and their writing, if it comes across their personality.
Yeah, it depends.
Yeah. Well, how can listeners and people follow you?
Yes, please follow me. I'm mostly on Instagram at Zibby Owens, ZibbYowens. I have a website, zibbyowens.com, and my podcast, so please subscribe, is called Moms Don't Have Time to Read Books. So those are the other ways. I mean, I'm on Twitter and I'm on Facebook and all that. But my beloved Instagram account is at Zibby Owens. So follow me there.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Zibby. It's been a pleasure talking to you, and I love your podcast, and I can't wait to hear the next one. And thank you so much for spending this time this morning.
Thank you for asking me. It's so nice of you. And it's so nice to talk to another book lover, another mom. I mean, this is amazing. This is like so great. That's part of the goal of why I do this, is connecting with people like you who I never would have met, but who I know would like appreciate the books or the advice or whatever. It's just amazing. It just makes me feel so good. So thanks.
Yes. Thank you, Zibby Owens. Moms don't have time to read.